How we doing, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. A couple of days ago, we took our first little sneak peek into what dragonflight crafting may look like. There's going to be some big significant changes. I wanted to spend a few minutes today talking through what Blizzard's actual philosophy was. We spoke last time about what some of the changes are going to be. We're going to see crafting orders, we're going to see talent trees, we're going to see quality playing a big part in the crafting setup. And with that in mind, understanding the little bits of basic information about that, I wanted to dive a little bit further into this and take a bit of a look at Blizzard's philosophy going forward for the professions, and maybe put forward some suggestions that maybe this is good on paper, but may not necessarily end up being exactly what we expect it to be in reality. But let's take a little look then. So, many players are going to want to craft the best of the best and will settle for nothing less. I'm really glad that Blizzard started with this because it goes to solidify the mindset that many people have when it comes to World of Warcraft. That it's a competitive game for many people. If you are not achieving the best you possibly can, second best is just first loser. It doesn't really make much difference. People want the best gear, they want the best consumables, they want the best mounts, they want the best transmog. People want the best of the best, and they will do whatever they can to get there. With this in mind, we want to share a little bit about the philosophy for both quality and the difficulty of tuning of recipes. Now, with some big significant changes to how dragonflight crafting is going to work, one thing I did mention multiple times in the last video when we spoke about this was that it's going to require some very, very careful balancing, or tuning as Blizzard likes to often refer to it. It's going to require some very, very careful adjusting of the knobs and tweaking of the numbers to make this sort of feel like a good system. We were hoping that Dragonflight wasn't going to be overly system heavy, at least not from a progression standpoint. But of course, with a complete reiteration of the crafting scene, there was undoubtedly going to be some systems in place. Now, this is maybe where they're going to focus. Maybe crafting is something that they don't consider quite as high a priority as, balancing raids and power progression items like covenants and conduits were. So we'll see how it plays out. So, what are they actually trying to achieve then? Well, for many early and low tier recipes, such as your leveling gear, your starting potions, and more, right as you learn them, your general crafting skill may be low enough that you tend to only be able to craft them at the lowest quality. This kind of makes sense, right? Thematically, it makes sense. You learn how to make something new, you tend to not be very good at making it without a little bit of practice. This was the sort of the mindset that they went into the legendary game with. That you start off being able to make some very basic item level 190, rank 1 legendaries, and as you've crafted more and more of them, you gain skill. What turned out to just be, fill the bar XP, but you gain skill in that and you rank up and then be able to make bigger and better things. This is how they're going forward with it, they're basically taking that system and exploding it across the entire crafting system. These recipes are not meant to be difficult though, and through gaining some higher skill in your profession or specializing in paths that will make you generally better, these recipes will tend to become easier to make at max quality, even when using lower quality reagents. So we can start to see the mindset of what they're trying to achieve here. They want to have this sort of feel of progression through your crafting system. As you become a better alchemist, as you become a better blacksmith, as you become a better tailor, you should be able to go back to the crafts you originally learnt and make them at a much higher quality. Not only make them at a higher quality, but also use less resources, or maybe not necessarily less resources, but lesser quality resources to achieve the same outcome, giving that sort of nice feeling of progression. On the other hand, though, there are many high-end recipes, particularly ones for the powerful optional reagents and top-tier consumables, will be extremely difficult to craft at the highest quality. In fact, the goal in these situations is that only the best of the best the best can make them at the highest quality, and only by using every tool at your disposal. This is where they may start to gatekeep some of the end game patterns. You may have to start using your profession talent trees to say, right, okay, I'm an alchemist and I want to specialize in flasks. So I'm going to put all of my talent points in one direction to make sure that as and when I'm making flasks, I'm using the lowest quality components I can get away with, because of course they're going to be cheaper. You want to save yourself as much gold on the crafting cost, but you at the very same time want to try and guarantee that you're going to be making the highest quality flasks, because of course in this game where the best of the best is everything that everybody wants, you are going to want to be continuously upping your game when crafting. What this means in practice is that if you want to craft the most difficult recipes at the maximum quality, let's say for example a chest item with an item level that is equivalent to mythic raids, you are likely to need to do a bunch of stuff. You are going to need to basically tick every single possible box to give yourself the best chance at creating that high quality item. You're going to need to fully specialize in crafting that type of gear. So if you were a blacksmith, you would need to, focus your talent tree in maybe focusing on armor specifically, maybe even going one level deeper, focusing specifically on how to craft chests, giving yourself a bonus when crafting chest pieces, I assume is how it's going to play out. You are going to need to use top quality reagents. You are going to need to use those tier 3, those maximum quality reagents that you can get your hands on. Those tier 1, those tier 2 basic dragon bars or dragon ingots or dragon ore, whatever it may be, are just not good enough. You are going to need to be purchasing or acquiring. You can, in theory, go out and farm this yourself, I'm sure. But you're going to need to be purchasing the top tier reagents to be able to put this piece of armor together. Both the default reagents and also the optional ones as well. One thing we did speak about is how they're going to be adding on finishing crafting reagents. These finishing crafting reagents are going to give you a boost to your crafting skill at the time of doing it. These are not going to have any long-lasting effect on the piece of gear that you craft, but they're going to directly affect you. Consider it like a consumable, consider it like a buff that you give yourself just for when crafting that item. You are going to also need to be using max quality of these to boost your chances even higher. Additionally to all of that though, you're then going to need to be equipping yourself with the best quality profession gear. Now this is something that's new in Dragonflight as well. We've seen this many times in other MMOs, but the likelihood is going to be that if you are a crafter in any way, shape or form, you will have a separate set of gear that's specifically designed for you to be crafting your stuff with. This may have some of the new stats on it. We have inspiration. In fact, I can show you them on screen here. We have the new additional crafting stats of inspiration, which is basically luck. It's going to give you that chance to craft something at a higher level. Resourcefulness, which will reduce the amount of raw materials that item takes to craft in the first place. For some things like potions and food and stuff, I can imagine there's a multi-craft stat, so you may get a proc and instead of making one, you might make 2 of them. Very similar to sort of the Silas proc or the alchemy specializations back in the day. And of course, there's also the crafting speed stat as well. So your gear, you're going to be geared out. You're going to be a blacksmith in a blacksmith set of armor. And that gear that you're going to be equipping is going to push you forward. And you may need to optimize and min-max your crafting gear set to be able to craft these highest quality items. All of this on paper so far sounds very good. I like this. I like this a lot. On top of that, you're going to need to either get lucky. I hate it when they've done a very good job, Blizzard, of trying to do everything in their power to not say the words RNG, but we know what they mean. On top of that, you're going to need to get lucky with inspiration or using the finishing agents, as we spoke about, to boost that skill to guarantee that the item is crafted at top quality. Now, in other words, this is going to take the contribution of many skilled crafters and gatherers, as well as a little bit of luck with those extra resources to make those best items. It's interesting to me how they're sort of putting a lot of emphasis on other skilled crafters and gatherers. I like it when the professions try to link in with each other. I like it when blacksmiths are making the ingots that then go off to another profession to craft something. They tried to do this with Shadowgast ingots in Shadowlands and failed miserably. Alchemists had a transmute for Shadowgast ingots, believe it or not. Probably nobody ever pressed that button, but it was a good initial thought. That's a good example, I suppose, of something that sounded good on paper, but didn't actually work out very well when they put it all together in game. But professions needing the skills and the expertise of others is good. That's what creates that sort of overall economy. Ask goblins, ask people that enjoy playing with all of this. The likelihood is you'll just log out and log on to an alt that has that skill. But either way, it pushes you in a direction so you engage with more of the game, which overall I think is good. The goal here is to make sure crafting the best of the best items, or more importantly, having it crafted for you, will be no small feat and one that you should be proud of. We also want to emphasize that you should never need to rely on luck. Luck can be much of a help to you if you want to focus on inspiration, but it's never necessary. This is where it all starts to fall apart for me. This is Blizzard trying to desperately claw at the fact that they're trying to claim that you won't need luck, but let's not forget the very first sentence they started with. Many players will want to craft the best of the best and will settle for nothing less. If you are settling for nothing less, then you are going to want the maximum quality. Now, if this does mean in some way, shape, or form you have to rely on luck, then it is necessary, Blizzard. I'm sorry, it is then going to be necessary. My thought process on this already is very simple. At the very beginning of the expansion, when your natural player skill in each profession is not at the max that it could be, you absolutely want to stack as much inspiration as you can get your hands on. The greater the chance of when you press that craft button to make something at a higher quality than what you would normally is not something I'm willing to give up on, because why would you? If you can get something better for the same price, why would you not? It's almost common sense to me but maybe Blizzard seems to think that it's not necessarily a necessary item. There's one sort of get out of jail free card here for Blizzard, and that is if you max out your profession completely. What I hope they do is balance it so that when you are the best of the best, when you have finished, when you've put all of the points in your talent tree, when you've got the best set of gear on, when you are using the best quality finishing reagents, maybe at that point you should just be able to craft the tier 5, the best quality items by default. Now, of course, if you can get to that point, then of course, only at that point you then need to no longer rely on luck, because you're already making the best stuff. You're skilled enough to be able to do that straight from the word go. That's kind of where that's the scenario I hope we end up in. We also hope this means crafting the very highest quality items turns out to be very lucrative, while also being something that a large guild could coordinate to do on their own. Please note, though, that the goal is not to have high-end gear cost anything remotely approaching the top legendaries in Shadowlands. There's some problems with this. That Blizzard doesn't really have the ability to control this. If we read on just one more sentence, in general, we don't expect the base reagents to be nearly as expensive, and most of the effort to become highly specialized will be through play, not in spending gold. There's an issue. There's an issue here that Blizzard, in the way that the economy works in World of Warcraft, doesn't really get to pick the price of things. So for them to turn around and claim that we don't expect them to be quite as high, well, that's kind of up to the player base. We saw this with Progenitor Essentia. I'm going to link back to something relatively recent. Progenitor Essentia in patch 9.2. Through all of my testing on the PTR, I came to a conclusion that the Progenitor Essentia might be 5 to 10,000 gold, because they were quite difficult to come by, but it was very, very difficult to sort of get a sense to just how the player base would react to this. As it turned out, give it a couple of weeks into patch 9.2, and people were more than comfortably paying 30,000 gold apiece for these Progenitor Essentia. Why was that? Well, the supply was diminished. The supply was very low. There was only a drip feed of them into the economy, and there was players willing to spend the big bucks to buy them. In an open economy like World of Warcraft tends to have, things sell for as much as people are willing to buy them for. This means that it's going to be very, very difficult for Blizzard to actually control just how much this stuff costs. The only way that they have to balance it realistically, and this is like I said, that I really hope that they do put some time and effort into balancing this. The only way they can balance it is by adjusting the amount of materials or adjusting the supply of those materials into the game. But the player base will still do its thing. More importantly, these are almost two contrasting statements. You can't expect the very highest quality items to be very lucrative whilst also making them cheap. You can't have the word like very lucrative and the word cheap in the same sentence. They're mutually exclusive. You can't have both. You can only have one. And I tell you for a fact, if some of the materials are scarce, if the process that you need to go through as a player to be able to craft these items in the first place, if you need to jump through 5 sets of hoops to be able to make that best quality item, I guarantee, yes, they'll be very lucrative. Why? Because people charge an arm and a leg for them. Um, I would be not too surprised if the price of some of this top quality gear exceeds that of base legendary items, simply because of the amount of hoops that you're going to potentially need to jump through. Now, of course, at this stage, we haven't even seen the alpha yet. This is all philosophy. But I do tend to feel that there are some sort of glaring errors in the way that Blizzard is trying to put this forward. I really, really hope they do a good job of implementing it into the game. To dive on a little bit further, the profession skilling philosophy. In Dragonflight, you are going to gain skill in your profession in a similar way to you have in the past. There will be one main difference though for the primary crafting professions. Instead of needing to max your skill to learn all of the recipes, you'll only need to skill up about halfway. The intent is that you won't need to feel the rush to max out your profession skill, but instead can slow down halfway. This is incredibly wishful thinking. There ain't nobody out there that's doing this. This is incredibly wishful thinking. The desire for people to slow down halfway is not how people play this game. And you understand that, Blizzard, so don't try and paint a picture that's in the opposite direction. You started off by once again saying people want the best of the best and will settle for nothing less. How do people achieve that? They achieve that by min-maxing the crap out of stuff. And that is exactly what people will do. Given the opportunity to get one more skill point than the next person, somebody will do it. Having access to the recipes to begin with is great, sure. That doesn't mean we're in any way going to slow down, though. You are, for sure, going to want to drive forward as fast as possible. You want to be fulfilling as many crafting orders as possible because it's going to directly relate to you being able to create bigger and better stuff. The starting points of this was that we want you to start off with low quality crafting items that presumably cost quite a lot, and then with more skill you get to a point where you can create higher quality things at a lesser price. That is a big shiny carrot on the stick for anybody that engages with professions. Nobody is going to be content slowing down halfway. This is flawed. This is vitally flawed to how people will actually engage with it. It's a concern. This is kind of I would really like to hear your guys' opinions on this, because I do worry that this may not necessarily turn out the way that Blizzard expect it when it's put in the hands of the general player base. Finally, it should mean that many fewer items are made when skilling up, thus flooding the market and diminishing their value. This is also true because much of the latter half of your progression skill will be earned through crafting those high-end items that require specifically earned soulbound reagents. Since as an individual crafter, you could not earn enough of these on your own to max your profession, you will often need to fill orders from others to maximize your profession skill. While I don't see this as a problem, I see this perfectly acceptable. This does naturally counteract what they said at the beginning. This is going to be the way that they're going to slow down your profession leveling. You are not going to be able to max out your professions until you have mythic raiders on your guild, on your realm, putting in those work orders for those super high mythic items. They're not going to be able to do that until they've at least killed some of the bosses, because they need the bind on pickup soulbound materials to put into the work orders so you can fulfill the work order. This is time gating in disguise. This is going to make it so that you can't log on the day one of day one of Dragonflight and instantly max out your profession skill. You will artificially get halfway and then be forced to slow down. This is not necessarily exactly the way. You won't be content with slowing down. You will be forced to, because you'll have no further progression to be able to be made. I really hope, to summarize this was more just sort of just trying to break it down a little bit. I really hope in summary that they can take some of the core aspects of this philosophy and put it into the game and make it a fun, engaging system. Although I am slightly concerned there's some glaring errors in what they are looking to achieve. Now, there's the possibility that some of this is just PR speak. It's quite sensible for people to assume that when there's 5 or 6 different, hurdles you're going to have to jump over to make the highest quality items, people out there that put that time and effort in are going to expect some sort of reasonable reward. They're going to want the item to be very lucrative. Otherwise, why would they bother? You then can't at the exact same time have everything being not as expensive as it once was. The balancing of this could be fun. But let me know what you think, boys and girls. I'll leave it there for today. Drop your comments down below on what you think about this philosophy going forward of professions. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know. I'd be really interested to hear. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.